Aviva, as I say, it's just up the road. It was founded, it was one of the original Cambridge phenomenon companies, started in 1967 in the days when the government did give lots of money to very bright people to research things. Here's a load of money, go and think of something clever. And their original concept was to go and help industry using then very fledgling technology of CAD. And in those days you needed a computer about half the size of this room to draw a line on the screen, and luckily there was one going spare. The only place that they could put it was the building up the road, and that's why we're here, as opposed to originally being a spin out of Cambridge University. The company had one employee from the government who ran the business, and all the other staff were supplied by ICL Data Skill, and were all programmers. And it was a bit like Herman said, you know, it was a meeting of some genius minds that came up with some database technology that provided the foundation for the company that we've got today. The company's grown considerably, coming from a sort of a difficult childhood, if you like. As a private company, the company existed with government funding only, very little customer money, up until 1983 when the company was privatised, in a very poorly managed privatisation by the government, in that the government's view was that the technology was extremely useful for British industry, and the thought was that CAD Centre, as it was called in those days, was going to be the design hub for the UK for engineering companies, where people would log in on a thin client, if you like now, to this mainframe computer and do all their computing remotely. And there wasn't much interest in the overseas market, so they gave away the product rights to the US and Germany to two minor development partners in the company, which was pretty disastrous. And one thing I would say to you is, if you're growing a business, think about the global market from the outset, and think really, really carefully about giving away product rights to anybody else. I know it's tempting when you're starting a business and you need the money, and you've got people knocking on the door saying, we can sell this in Japan, America, or wherever it might be, to take their money and give them some rights, but they're extremely difficult to get back. So think about being a global business from the outset. Anyway, 1983 the company was privatised, so it went from having government funding to zero funding virtually overnight. I joined it in 84, as Sherry said, as one of the first people that actually had sold anything and had been a salesperson that had to sell things to customers who paid you money, which was quite a novel concept for the company in those days. It took us a long time to tidy up the issues of the DTI and wrestle back all the marketing rights for the product. We were dead in the water for a while doing that, which was very difficult. But now we've got to a point where it's a global business. We have 37 offices around the world. Only 2 of those are in the UK. 70% of our employees are outside the UK, and 95% of the company's revenue is coming from outside the UK. Where did we start that expansion overseas? It really started in the very early 90s, when literally, having had the German market sort of not available to us for a long time, we drew a cross on the map of Europe, and the place in the middle in those days was Frankfurt. You could fly from Stansted to Frankfurt, so it was easy to get to, and we decided that that would be our European hub. So off I went to Frankfurt and set up an office there, myself and another guy, with virtually nothing. The competition by this time had established itself in the American and German markets, 2 of the biggest markets for the products. So this made it pretty difficult. It was an uphill struggle. We in fact had 2 customers in the whole of the Swiss, German, Austrian region, and our major competitor had 135. So it's quite an uphill battle. But you've got to pick somewhere to start. And so off we went, and the competition said, oh, don't worry, these guys will get fed up and go home. They'll never make any money, never make any inroads to the market. And it was very, very tough for the first year. Most of the customers, we knocked on their door. They said, thanks very much, we've already got your competitor's product. So what we did is targeted their biggest customer and called them every week without fail. Even though they said, we're not interested, go away, don't ring back again, we called them and called them and called them. Usually on a Friday when we'd been to the pub and had a couple of drinks and were feeling pretty bullish. And eventually we won that customer. And now we're bigger than our competitor in Germany. It took a while, but we did it. And we used the same model that we set up for the German office in pretty much every office we've done since. Apart from the fact that we don't use Brits generally, we try to find a local or somebody who at least lives in that country and speaks the language. They don't have to be French or whatever. And we've done that very successfully in other countries. The most recent one has been Brazil, which for us was a potentially a very, very big market, but a very difficult country or geography to attack. The whole of South America was a place where we had no real base. Has a huge amount of people living there. They don't all speak the same language. And if you go to a very big country like China, India, or not so much India, but Brazil, not so many people speak English. So it's a pretty difficult place to start. But again, we found a customer that we wanted, Petrobras in this case, and just camped on their doorstep, eventually got in there, and now have a huge growing business in Brazil. But some of the lessons that we've learned about this are, think early about global markets. Think that if you want to be a global company, try to keep that in your strategy and plan for that early on. As I say, it's very easy to be tempted to sign up deals with other people that you'll then live to regret, and will either make exits difficult for you or penetration into those markets difficult because you've got an incumbent that is either going to cost you a lot of money to get rid of or buy, or you're stuck with them. And generally you find that agents are very, very interested early on and sometimes lose interest later on. Know the customers really well. You know your product, but find customers that you know that you'll be able to get under their skin. And as Henry said, they're the best salespeople you've got. In our case, knowing the customer's number one buying criteria we felt was a key issue for us. It wasn't price, it wasn't product functionality. In our case, it was product reliability and quality of customer service on the ground. Customers are buying something from us that's a mission-critical component. If it doesn't work, their project's not going to get made on time, or they're going to lose a lot of money. So when they buy from you, they generally want to look you in the eye and say, do I trust these people? When it all goes wrong, are they going to be here to help me, or is it just an agent who sold me the thing and is gone? And having customer service people on the ground was also critically important to us. So most of these overseas offices, some are doing R&D as well now, but most of them were set up as a sales and customer service location for us. Other things that we learnt along the way, you need good people to do this. Majority of knowledge-based companies and fabless or non-manufacturing companies were very people-dependent. And you've got to make some tough decisions along the way. As the company grows, not all of the people are going to grow with you at the same time. And sometimes people that you started up businesses with, overseas organisations, who you loved and helped you greatly, don't always develop, and you have to make some tough decisions along the way with some of those people. Change is really hard to implement in a company, and the more you change, the more costly it is. So try to think bigger than you really are at the outset, and then some of those changes you won't have to do because you've already prepared for them as you've gone along. And people don't like change generally, so try to avoid that as much as you can. Put in systems that are bigger than you think you really should have, because it's very easy to skimp on things when you're a startup, when you're a young company, and you think these things are a real burden and a massive cost overhead. But really think of them as an investment for the future. They're something you really have got to have, because you'll need them one day, and it's better to start out thinking like that than having to go through yet more change and implement more processes and systems. And as a company grows, you have to have these things. I'd also say don't expect a lot of help from governments when you're going overseas. There is no money left. That's it. You've pretty much got to do it on yourselves. I think in almost every case, we've never used the DTI or anybody else to help us overseas. In general, I've found that they're a drag on what you're doing and don't actually help you at all. So I wouldn't assume that there's any help there at all. You're on your own, I'm afraid. The other thing is that most people here are going to have very innovative or disruptive technologies, and these things cause everything to change. So you as a company will have to change. The market will change as well. If you're introducing something new, something disruptive, life won't be the same in 5 years' time for people, but you'll see that coming. So you have the ability to adapt to that before everybody else. And as Herman said again, you have first mover advantage. Keep an eye on what's happening, where the customers are going, and plan for that to make sure you don't lose that first mover advantage, because it's something that is massively, massively valuable. You've invested nearly everything you've got in winning that first mover advantage. So don't let one of your competitors catch you up and predict the market a little bit ahead of you and sneak in front. It's really important to keep that. But I think ultimately it's something, driving overseas markets is something you have to be really involved in yourself as a founder, CEO, entrepreneur, head of the company, wherever you consider yourself. You've got to be involved in it yourself. You can't trust this to other people so much. Certainly for the first few moves you make overseas, you really have got to be involved in it yourself. And as I said earlier, think of yourself as a much bigger company than you really are. And when I talked about investing in processes, also the people you work with companies that you may think are a little bit expensive, and only people that want to work with big firms, but they're the people to buddy up to, because people judge you by the company you keep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.